ومن أحسن قولا ممن دعا إلى الله وعمل صالحا وقال إنني من المسلمين.
Here with our brother Bobby. Inshallah, this is going to be a really historic podcast. So first thing, it's a pleasure being here. I know we did a podcast or whatever interview or discussion online, but it's not the same as being here in person. Alhamdulillah, I have some questions to ask you, but also, anything you have, this is fun discussion. So a little bit about your background, summarized religious journey, you could say.
Sure. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Thank you very much for having me, and thank you very much for meeting me in Bangkok, of all places, Thailand. So a little bit about my background story. I talked about this partially on my channel. If you haven't checked out my channel, Bobby's Perspective, maybe we're going to link it in the description box.
For sure.
So yeah, my background is, and I'm not ashamed to say it, but it is definitely something that I'm not proud of talking about nowadays. I used to be not only an Islamophobe, but I used to hate Islam. So an Islam hater, if you will. I wasn't afraid of Islam, but I hated it with a vengeance. I grew up in Germany. However, my parents are from northern Macedonia, which was part of Yugoslavia back in the day, the Balkans. And we have a long history with the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire occupied Yugoslavia, the Balkans, for 500 years. And during that time, of course, people started telling stories about how the Ottomans enslaved us, how they, I don't want to get cancelled, took over our women and whatnot, right? So there was a lot of hate against the Muslims, against the Turks. And to this very day, if somebody were to convert to Islam, he would be considered a Turk. Right? So that's how it is seen. It's not a religious perspective at all there. It's a nationalistic perspective. And whoever would convert to Islam would become automatically a Turk. That is based upon that even during the Caliphate, during the Ottoman Empire, you had Bulgarians, which were fighting on the side of the Ottomans. And yeah, they were considered then automatically Turks.
So it's like more of a racial thing than a religious belief based.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is the background of the Balkans. Then growing up in Germany, however, I was surrounded by Turks as well. And most of them were in gangs, criminal activity, drugs, prostitution, and whatnot. And therefore, this tainted my image of Islam even further. And I just put one and one together, so to speak. I said, okay, we have a history of violence on the Balkan. Now I see violent gangs here. So therefore, Islam is violent and Christianity is pacifistic, peaceful, a religion that is furthering love between your neighbors, between people in general. And therefore, I discarded Islam altogether. Moreover, I grew up, and we talked about this, thinking that all of those religions are monotheistic. So I didn't believe that anybody attributes anything to God anyways. My father always told me there is nothing like God. And therefore I always knew, okay, God is one and that's it.
Almost exactly from the Quran.
And he never read the Quran nor the Bible.
Wow, interesting. But this is interesting because people do have a fitrah. People have a natural state of, if you leave somebody alone, they don't go worship a guy on a cross or a cow or a monkey. They always have this idea of one great super creator, the Khaliq, the creator.
Yes.
So then your experience with Islam were definitely very negative. This is very interesting because you see a lot of people that do become Muslim, alhamdulillah, but somebody coming from a background where they really had that hatred.
No, I hated it. I really hated it, So going back and forth between Germany and Macedonia, the city that my parents are from used to be roughly 15% Albanian. So the population was roughly 15%. Nowadays, it's 85 to 90%.
Wow.
So there was a civil war, etc. And for me, yet again, this was seen as an Islamic takeover. Right? So I saw how the Macedonian population dropped and how the Albanian, quote-unquote, Muslim population was rising. And therefore, I felt like a foreigner in my own country, right? And every time I would hear the Adhan, I thought it's in Albania. Now, shame on me. I had
That's
no,
interesting.
yeah, I had no idea about Arabic whatsoever. I told you this in private.
Yeah.
Everybody in my family says mashallah, without knowing that this has anything to do with Islam or that it is Arabic.
That's interesting. Like you have somebody hating Islam,
Yeah,
but using
but saying mashallah.
mashallah.
Yeah, exactly. It's quite the interesting state on the Balkans. Yeah, anyways, and I thought that now there's this Hodja, that's how we call him. He's shouting again in Albanian, and I really thought he's shouting something against us. This is how
That
basic
was
it
like
was.
a war crime.
Yeah, exactly. Macedonians out of our country, this is our place now, something ridiculous like this.
Your women are ours. We're
Yeah.
coming to take over.
That's what we hear. Yeah, that's how I saw it, and therefore I associated even more negativity with Islam. Yeah, this is basically how I grew up, man, with a lot of hate. I even thought about joining certain nationalistic movements in Macedonia. I was waiting for another war when I'm old enough, because the last civil war, I was only 16 years old.
Okay.
And I was hoping when I'm 18, 19, hopefully there's another war, and then I can fight those Albanians and get rid of Islam. I was really hateful as it gets.
Genocidal here.
Genocidally.
All right.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah, then what happened is that I got a crisis of faith when I was in my 20s, basically, like many in Germany. It's a secular environment, and I didn't really want to look any further into it. I was interested in living my life as many are in their 20s. I just wanted to have fun, went out partying, and during that time, I made a bunch of Muslim friends yet again,
okay.
but they were all involved with drugs. So we started selling, again, YouTube.
We're not setting a good example here, guys.
Yeah, it's all for educational purposes. It didn't really happen. I'm just making this up. So back in the day, there was a lot of drug selling, and I was involved there as well. The only difference is, during that time, I was in the mindset that this is what I have to do. Well, I have to hustle, I have to make some money. The Muslim friends of mine, they did the exact same thing. However, they would always tell me, oh, this is haram, this is from the shaitan.
Wow, okay.
Okay, so we would
At
sit
least they
down.
regretted it. Okay.
Sure, okay, but I didn't get it, because we would sit down, we would smoke a joint, and they would tell me, oh, this is from the shaitan. I'm like, bro, then don't smoke it. Don't tell me this.
Right.
So it was very strange and hypocritical for me,
Yeah,
because either you do it or you don't. For me, it was very important to be congruent with what I do.
Okay.
If I choose to do something, I'm going to do it 100%.
I like that.
And then I'm not going to debate or discuss or argue about it.
No half stepping.
No, it doesn't work. So if you tell me this is forbidden, then don't do it.
Nice.
Don't sit here with me, smoke a joint, and tell me this is haram. That's like me having fast food with you and telling you, oh, that's unhealthy, you shouldn't do it. No, man, if I eat a burger, I'm going to enjoy myself. Otherwise, I'm not going to eat.
I like that.
Yeah, that was basically it. So during that time, I saw that hypocrisy within them, and I associated that with Islam again. I thought that Islam is setting some sort of unrealistic standard that you cannot reach anyways. And moreover, in my back of the head was the reason why those guys end up in jail all the time is due to Islam.
Interesting.
I didn't end up in jail, thank God, even though
Alhamdulillah.
I had some court charges, but I didn't end up in jail. And they were in and out of jail all the time, and I would associate it yet again with Islam.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that was basically that. During my 20s then, as I said, I left Christianity, not officially. I was always identified as a Christian, but not practicing. And this is when I started looking into different religions such as Buddhism, Hinduism, but moreover, psychedelics, shamanism, things of that nature. And this is when I came to the realization that all religion is man-made. It's all just a man-made concept. It has no real truth behind it. It's simply something that people like to adhere to if they have no direct experience. Because through meditation, through yoga, through those psychedelics, I got the idea that now I really know.
Interesting.
So when I read the texts of certain prophets or certain Buddhist masters, I can do the same. That was my arrogant view. I can just do the same if I just take a substance.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And this is what they're really talking
Reach
about.
some higher plane.
Yeah.
Enlightenment.
Yeah, enlightened.
Yeah.
The enlightened guy.
LSD'd out.
Yeah, exactly. And so this brought me further away from religion for a while. Until then, at the end of this exploration, I felt completely crushed. I've been traveling the world, I went to the Amazon jungle.
That's amazing. You
With
definitely
shamans.
are a dedicated man.
Hey, I gave it a fair shot.
Right.
I really tried, yeah. I wanted to explore truths in every field. So I want to understand physical truth. through diet.
Mm.
I want to understand what happens to the human body if we fast. You know, what happens if I fast for 35 days just on juices? What happens if I just drink water for 10 days and meditate? You know, things of that nature. What happens if I eat only one meal a day? I was eating only one meal a day, and that meal was fruits for
Wow.
1 year. So that was terrible.
I was gonna say that sounds pretty.
Yeah, you're starving all day, and then the only thing that you're getting to alleviate the hunger is bananas.
Banana.
Yeah, fantastic. Good choice. Don't do it. Yeah, so I did that for a year. I was trying to understand the human body. Prior to that, I was a bodybuilder and I weighed 120 kilograms.
Oh.
Then after that exploration, I weighed only 60 kilograms.
Ooh.
Before starting with bodybuilding, I weighed 60 kilograms as well. So I gained 60 kilograms and lost them again. You know?
Lost half your weight.
Yeah, because I want to understand how this human body works. So that was the physical pursuit. Then the spiritual pursuit. You know, I tried to understand it through the psychedelics, through the shamanic route. And then when that failed, I started going to church.
Okay.
I didn't understand it though, because I was so used to this direct experience, something that you just ingest and then you have a vision. And now I didn't get it. You know, I was listening to the preachers, I was looking around. In the Orthodox Church, we have a lot of icons.
Okay.
So I was looking at those icons, trying to understand. There was the Saint Georgios with his spear killing a dragon. You know?
Wait, they have a saint killing a dragon?
Yeah. Slaying the serpent, basically.
Is it supposed to be like a flying dragon kind of a thing, or is it like a
I
snake?
think it's a representative of a demon or the
Okay.
devil himself, because in Christianity we see him as the serpent.
And the saint killed him?
Yeah, he's slaying him. Yeah. That's the story. So you see him, he's on a horse with this big spear and he's slaying the dragon. Whenever I was looking at that, then I was looking at Jesus on the cross. Never really sat right with me.
Okay, interesting.
And I'm going to talk about that in a second.
Yeah.
And I tried to understand how this will now enrich me or further me spiritually. I didn't get it. No, I didn't get it. So ultimately, because I was so lost within this new age movement of spirituality, I said to myself, I have to commit to this because there's nothing else left. You know, and of course not going to become a Muslim.
Of course
Well,
not.
of course not.
Hated them, right? The
Well,
Albanians.
Yeah, the Albanians. I'm not going to become an Albanian, right? Yeah, so this is what I tried then with Christianity. However, I was the first man in my family, and I can say that with confidence, I know for a fact, that actually looked into Christian Orthodoxy.
So the rest of the family, even though they were Christian, they never really looked into the belief or the scriptures or any of that, huh?
They have no idea, man. It's quite saddening, really, because, as I said, I always wanted to understand, always wanted to know. So when I went to my Serbian friends, I was 16 years old or so, and it was a celebration, yet again, about a certain saint. And I never understood those saints. I didn't get it.
That's a good point. It's always about Saint.
Always about Saint.
Valentine, Saint Valentine,
Yeah.
Saint Patrick. It's interesting.
Yeah. So I went there and I asked the father of my best friend. So he was the same age like my dad. My best friend was my age, obviously. And I simply asked him, "What is this about? Can you tell me?" You know? And this guy was drunk, man. He was drunk. He was eating pork. You know, he's like, "Why are you asking such a dumb question?" I'm like, "Man, hey, with all due respect, I'm just asking. I want to know what we're celebrating.
Right.
You know what I mean? So if it's your birthday or something, you can let me know. You know, what is this?" "Why do you ask me? My grandfather celebrate, my father celebrate. I'm going to celebrate too." You know, eating pork chops there.
We find the same thing in the Quran. In the Quraysh, they would say, we saw our forefathers doing this.
Right.
They didn't think. They didn't think about why we're worshiping the idol, why we're, some of them making the tawaf naked or things. And that's the thing today too. A lot of people, and I hope if you're watching this, don't just follow Christianity or Judaism or Hinduism because you were born in that household or you think it's like Indian culture or American culture. Think about what you believe.
Yeah.
Because this is the most important thing you have in your entire life, is to understand why you're here, who created us, where we're going. So think, contemplate.
Very true, very true. And this is what I witnessed there, that nobody was thinking about it at all. You know, even when I went to Australia later on and I worked in construction sites over there were a lot of Serbs, a lot of Macedonians, a lot of Balkan people. Same thing.
Yeah.
They would bring a pig, like a pork roast, the whole thing with an apple in its mouth, and roast it there and celebrate something whilst drinking again. You know? And I would always ask the same question. I never got an answer. Nobody knew. They were just happy they can finally drink again. You know, just a reason for that. Yeah. It was absolutely repulsive. So yeah, nobody knew about it on the Balkans. Nobody was asking those questions, and therefore, I was the first man in my family to actually do the research.
Nice.
And when I found out about the Trinity, this shook me to the core. It destroyed my faith right then and there.
Interesting.
Even though I still tried hanging on to it, because I told myself that Christianity must be the truth, because everything by default is false. I saw it already. I experienced, as I said, Buddhism, Hinduism, and Islam. I saw it as well. I was certain. Never opening up the Quran, but I was certain. I know it. I know what they're about. So
The Turks.
yeah. And therefore, I didn't even consider it, right? Even when you look into the Christian scene nowadays on YouTube, you will see many Americans actually converting to Orthodox Christianity because they're looking for a more traditional way of being, and Orthodoxy provides that to an extent.
Okay.
However, they are not looking into Islam either, right? And they think by making the leap to Orthodox Christianity, they went already above and beyond, leaving their culture.
Right.
But ultimately, it's still Christianity. Catholicism is not that much different of Orthodoxy. You have the Pope within Catholicism, which I disagree with as well. However, it's not that different when it comes down to the theology based upon the Nicene Creed.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyways, that being said, yet again, I was the first one to actually explore it, and when I found out about it, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't make sense of it whatsoever. Like even the concept of the Hindus, which I don't agree with either, that there is one God and then he manifests in thousands of different things.
Right.
Even that would make more sense to me than the Trinity, because the Trinity would be a limitation to 3 things.
Right.
You understand? So if they say, hey, he manifests in countless things, okay, at least he has the potential of manifesting in countless things.
Into rats and stuff.
Yeah, okay, sure. But you get the point.
Because, I do.
Because he has infinite potential, at least, okay, he transforms into all kinds of things. To limit it to 3, such human, anthropological, concepts of a father and a son, didn't sit right with me whatsoever. Because intuitively, I simply knew, and based upon my spiritual experience as well, that God most certainly is not a man. Impossible.
Nice.
Absolutely impossible. It's such a egocentric view as well.
Yeah.
I don't know what is going on in this world. Let me make it more comfortable for me. There is a father in the sky.
Yeah.
And therefore I understand this atheist argument against religion. It's not against religion, it's based on Christianity. The sky daddy.
I think every atheist I've ever met has had his problem with religion really be a problem with Christianity.
I agree.
And they will always come up with arguments against religion based on refuting Christianity.
I agree.
So yeah, the whole idea of this father in the sky, and then giving the idea of some human being who's still God and fully human at the same time.
Doesn't work.
And you really see, if you look at early Christianity, you've studied it, I think, probably more than me. So you don't see it in the very early followers of Jesus. You see it when the pagan, Roman, Greek mythology started to be brought into Christianity. So this whole idea of Zeus and Hercules and all this stuff that you find kind of being brought into Christianity. So
indeed,
yeah, half God, half man.
Not half.
Yeah.
Full.
Yeah.
Full.
I mean, so
full and full.
So the Greek would have it as a god that's fully God, and then a human woman, and then you get this demigod, and then they just brought that into Christianity. But then, since they were going to worship Jesus, they also had to say, okay, no, he's fully God. Which again, till today, and again, if you're a Christian, you're watching this, I don't mean this as offensive. I mean this as to open your mind. No Christian has been able to explain what does that mean, fully God and fully human, because it sounds to me like a square or a square circle. A square has 4 sides. A circle is fully round. You cannot have, by definition, a square circle. God knows everything. He has, including biblical scriptures will say, can do everything, cannot be seen by humans on earth, at least. And so to say he's fully God would say that you would have to fully know everything. And then to say you're human, then you forget, you don't know things, you have needs, you get hungry, you get tired, you make mistakes. So that those definitions cannot coincide.
Never.
Just like a square circle.
It doesn't work whatsoever, no matter how you look at it. If you look at this Greek mythological concept that you mentioned with 50-50, even though it's not true, at least it makes sense. So if there is a god, which yet again doesn't make sense, but and he has intercourse with a human, which doesn't make sense either, but hear me out, then at least that would be 50-50. Right, in that mind game.
Yeah.
But because that would be paganism, and that would be worship of a man,
Right.
You have to twist it, and then you have to amp it up to 100% each. And then it still doesn't make sense.
Right.
And it's more confusing on top.
Agree.
Right? Yeah, anyways, that was, as I said, essentially the breaking point for me, because it was so frustrating, man. I tried to understand it, and ultimately I came to the conclusion, if I want to understand this, I would have to choose to believe this.
Mm.
And this is what it boils down to. Exploring Islam now. There is the Shahada, right? Which we're going to come to later, inshallah. But the point is that the Shahada itself is, at least the first part, not based on a temporal event, on a historical event itself.
True.
Right? So you have the affirmation first that there is no God but God. Right? And this is crucial because you're not basing your faith upon a historical event that might have happened or might have not happened.
Good point.
Right? This is what I was thinking about. So now, if we're talking about the moon splitting, for example.
Right.
Okay, I haven't been there.
Right.
So now, if I believe this, I will have to choose to believe this.
True.
That's just a fact. So if I choose to believe this, that's fine. Then I know that I chose to believe this.
Right.
However, I don't have to choose to believe that there is one God.
Right.
I don't have to choose this. More, I can't even choose it because this is something that I feel deeply.
Right.
I know.
It's a reality. Yeah.
If you ask me about anything, is there a phone now recording us? Are we sitting here on the couch? Of course, I can dive into philosophical questions, and maybe not. I don't know. Sure.
Right.
But
maybe it's a dream.
Maybe it might be. Who knows? But the point of the story is, as far as I know, I believe that we're sitting here on the couch.
Right.
Okay. So I choose to believe this because the most rational belief that I can hold right now.
Right.
And it's the same with God. With God, I'm certain in my heart that God exists.
Right.
It's absolutely impossible for me. Everything else just falls into obscurity. It's ridiculous to have this reality without a creator. It doesn't make any sense. It's irrational.
That's a great point. So, I mean, we talked about your rejection of Christianity, but then a lot of people, what they do, and this is good for people that are watching, is they jump to atheism.
Right.
So what caused you to reject atheism?
Atheism is a doctrine of irrationality. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Terence McKenna, who used to be a psychonaut, a philosopher of sorts, deep into mushrooms, nevertheless, he said one thing that was amazing. And he said that science operates under one premise, grant us one miracle, and we explain the rest.
Okay.
Which means give us the Big Bang. Poof.
Right.
That's a miracle that they're going to accept.
Okay, that's true. That's a good point, right?
Yes, it's a great point.
Because how did the Big Bang come to be, right? Where did that come from, right?
So this is not what we're going to question. We're just going to accept it as a miracle, poof, and then we're going to explain the rest.
Right.
Expansion of the universe, right? Time and space and whatnot.
That's a good point. When you ask an atheist, okay, but where did it all start? They never have an answer.
No, with the Big Bang.
Big Bang. So who caused the Big Bang? And according to, scientific research, something doesn't happen from nothing, right? So there has to have been somebody or something, whatever you want to call it, that initiated the Big Bang. And the Big Bang came from what? Because nothingness can't make something, right?
No.
So when you go take it back that way, they'll have to then either say we don't know, or they'll say, like you said, there was one miracle, and then after that, no more.
Exactly. After that, no more. It doesn't matter, right? How existence came into place in the first place. Yeah, anyways, this is why it is irrational to begin with. There is no origin, there is no cause. And even within that sentence, they're going to explain why, they're going to explain how. There is no real why. They're not going to explain why. They're going to explain how potentially on a surface level.
And those are all theories, right? If you talk about Big Bang, even if you talk about the expanding universe, these are theories.
Of course.
People, one of the things that annoys me, because I work in the scientific field, I work with medical devices, and we do clinical trials, and is a lot of atheists feel as if science is their like proof.
Is their God.
Yeah, exactly. So, but they're still blindly believing. It's not like they saw evolution develop. They didn't see the Big Bang. They didn't, when they tell us, "Have you seen God?" Well, have you seen evolution? Have you seen the universe expanding? And everything they're basing it on is what they have read from somebody else.
Exactly right.
And somebody who's not a prophet, who doesn't have any divine source, doesn't have any miracles in the sense that we would talk about a religious miracle. So, like Darwin, if you look at Darwin and his theories, I've read a lot of his works, and not just a couple. I've read a lot of his works, and people don't realize how racist he was. First off, even though I mean, to be fair, I think he did have a disdain for slavery and what was going on. So in a way, he was less racist than others. But I mean, if you read his later works, especially when he talks about the evolution of different species, he felt his own Caucasus race was more evolved than the pygmies, who were less evolved, hence these being higher. And he had these, ridiculous ideas about measuring people's heads and development, which were actually scientifically off as well. So if you're going to take Darwin as your core belief of how humanity developed, then understand you're also taking a very racist view.
Sure.
He also had a very sexist view. He felt that if it wasn't for the certain needs for women, quote unquote, men would have outpopulated them and outdone them because they're superior, because physically and mentally and all these things. So today, if I say these things, if I said it, I would get canceled.
It was Darwin.
But this is Darwin's statement, and people don't read, into his writings. They just think, "Oh, Darwin figured it out." Well, if you're going to go with what he figured out, then you also believe in a racist, sexist ideology.
Right.
So science doesn't disprove God. Like, this is such a wrong concept. In fact, I would say to the opposite, because if you put a hypothesis forward of where humans came from and how we developed, the hypothesis that this came from nothing with no intelligent design and no designer, no developer, nobody to guide the evolution of species is less likely than the hypothesis scientifically that there is a creator. We give the easy example. If you look at this phone right now, and I tell you, this used to be an iPhone 10 and it evolved into a 13.
That makes sense.
That would be nice,
I
right?
see, yeah.
I wouldn't have to buy a new phone, right?
There's a 13 on it. So.
Right? So I mean, now when you look at that and say this evolves by itself, you wouldn't believe me. You'd be like, this guy's pulling my leg. He's joking. He's crazy, because they don't just evolve by themselves.
Right.
But no doubt the evolution that people talk about amongst humans and animals is more complex. So then you would have to say, okay, well, it couldn't happen by itself. And then they would say, no, this is natural and that's unnatural. What does that mean? I mean, if you look at the human nervous system, it's so complicated, so amazing. When you study science and you study biology and you study anatomy with an open mind, you really believe in God. I mean, your iman, your faith gets strong, because you look at even how a human body fights off viruses. How every day we're running into bacteria. We have white blood cells. Who would program something so amazing? How could you possibly think this came from nothing? So okay. So we're done with atheism. Where did you go next?
I would just like to say that, to finalize atheism, that's an ideology of despair, because it is not based upon an ultimate truth. As you said, it's an assumption first and foremost, but moreover, you're basing it on something whilst you're not believing in an absolute truth.
Right.
This is what crushes atheism for me. Because if you say there is no God, then by default you have no right and no wrong anymore. When you look at Sam Harris, which is like a famous atheist,
Right.
he opened up a famous speech of his and said, I don't have to explain to you that we shouldn't poison a well in Africa. I shouldn't have to explain this to you. Why not?
Exactly.
Why not?
Yeah.
So if you go by the ideology of Darwinism, survival of the fittest, etc., and the white man is superior anyways,
Right.
just go there, poison them all, take their land, done.
Of course.
Well, it has been done anyways, so
Right.
go on with that.
Right.
What's wrong with it?
What would be a justification under a evolutionist's mindset of atheism not to enslave other people?
Exactly right.
If you are further up on the evolution chain, and for example, if we were to say, you know what, let's kill off disabled people.
Yeah.
Let's kill off anybody with a genetic disorder in their family. Let's kill them off so they don't pass those genes of disease further on. How would you justify that being wrong without any divine moral code?
Exactly. You would do that in dog breeding, and this is what has been used for eugenics then later on as well.
Right.
So yeah, you just take what is favorable to your subjective standard.
You take a really strong, big guy, and you're like, you impregnate all the women.
All of them.
You weak guys, sorry.
Like Genghis Khan.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyways, that's exactly what it boils down to. So you don't have right and wrong then.
Right.
But at the same time, this society that is atheistic will tell me what is right and wrong.
Right. And that'll
How?
change, right?
They will change all the time.
I mean, when I ask I had a video where I said there's no such thing as a moral atheist.
Mm.
And I got all this, hatred back.
I'm moral. They want to be moral.
Right? I'm
Why?
moral. I'm atheist.
Why? Who
You know,
cares?
okay, well, what does that mean you're moral?
Mm.
Okay. Do you believe in the death penalty? Well, I have atheists that will argue all day long that the death penalty is immoral. And another atheist will say, no, it's perfectly moral. You killed somebody, you murdered,
Sure.
we don't want to pay taxes and keep you alive. Your death is bad. So now this atheist is immoral to him, and this atheist is immoral to him.
Mm.
So they're both immoral according to somebody else's standard.
Right.
So where's the standard?
Yes.
If you look at abortion, I mean, there's people who would argue all day long, this is murder. There's other people who argue all day long, there's a woman's right. So what's the moral stance? Euthanasia. You're old, you're in pain, you want to kill yourself. In majority of the world, that's illegal. It's immoral.
Mm.
Many countries, especially in Europe now, they're like, you know what? It's okay, kill them. We don't need them in society, right?
They created a pot now. Have you seen it?
No,
A death pot.
a death pot.
Yeah.
Wow.
You can live in the pot in China, or you can die in the pot now. You just go in there and then you press the button.
Wow. So that's interesting.
Good.
Now, it's a suicide, and you're facilitating it and saying this is moral,
Yeah, that's good.
and everybody will have their own morality. So slavery. We talked about slavery a little bit. In America, there was a time when the majority of the population thought slavery was moral, and they
Sure.
used it. And there was a time when the country fought itself, the Civil War, over other issues too, but slavery being one of the major issues. So a good part of America went to war saying, no, this is morally correct.
Mm.
So now, if you leave morality to society, then again, nobody's moral, because every society will judge other societies to be immoral.
Exactly. Yeah, and this is what it boils down to. It is a subjective standard, which is imposed then by the ones in charge, imposed onto us, man-made laws that we are then supposed to follow. However, if you look into this atheistic mind and you analyze what they're basing it upon, it is essentially whatever feels good. Right? So you have this trickling down to veganism, and veganism, they tell you it is bad to eat meat because it feels bad for the animal. Right? It feels so bad, and therefore just what feels good to the cow must be then right. And therefore I always ask the vegans, how about I genetically modify a cow, and that cow lives the perfect life, and then when she gets slaughtered, experiences bliss, orgasmic bliss. It enhances the pleasure. It's the best thing that can happen. It's the finale, the peak of the life of the cow.
I mean, the cow's going to die anyway.
Yes, but now it's going to die with a big bang.
Right?
It's
now you're going to enjoy it.
Yeah, she's going to enjoy it. So is that then moral? Oh, but she didn't choose to be genetically modified. Who cares?
She didn't choose to be a cow.
It's random anyway. So you have random evolution. I randomly evolved. And now randomly, I'm genetically modifying her genes. And now she experiences more pleasure. So now everybody wins.
Right.
You understand? So therefore, if you look into the society, they do whatever feels good.
Right.
However, it is a short-term reward. For example, you have a 4-year-old kid, decides now to become a girl, feels good in the moment. I'm a girl, okay? Puberty blockers, chop it off. Yeah. Have fun. Feels good, allegedly. Long-term repercussion, terrible. What else feels good? Fast food feels good. Pornography feels good. All of those things are catered to us because they stimulate us.
Alcohol, drugs.
Everything, you name it. Everything that we see in this system. And this is what atheism really leads down to. There are certain memes, atheist society, how atheists see it. And then you see this scientifically advanced society, flying cars and whatnot. And then you see the reality, the bum on the street, hookers everywhere, etc., etc. So it really doesn't work if you base your whole foundation of society on good feelings rather than on what is right. Exactly. Yet again, you have a society that has no right and wrong, and therefore we just go by feeling.
And this idea of whatever feels good, do it. I mean, if you look at AIDS, if you look at a lot of the other drug addiction, if you look at suicide rates, this is where you find all of the evil of society comes.
Sure.
I get this sometimes, with the park giving dawah, somebody will come and be like, oh, Muslim countries are horrible, and that's why everybody's fleeing. That's not true. If you go to Malaysia, you go to Indonesia, I just came back, and if you go to most Muslim countries, it's actually safer.
Yes.
It's nicer. People are nicer. It's cleaner. Yes, we have countries that have wars like Syria, going on right now, Iraq before that, Somalia. But those people aren't fleeing because they're Muslim. It's because there were wars in their countries, and most of those wars weren't local. You
Right.
had external powers, Russia and Syria and other countries. I mean, the U.S. in Iraq. I mean, that went in and caused that conflict. So I mean, if you want to just look at a non-biased way, go and Google highest murder rate in the world, highest suicide rates in the world, highest rape rates in the world. All those countries coming in the top 10 are going to be all non-Muslim countries.
Sure.
So I was just recently in, like I said, Malaysia, Indonesia, beautiful countries, beautiful environments. You saw families walking around at 1 a.m.
Yes.
In Pakistan, even, people are so scared of Pakistan. I was in Pakistan, especially in Ramadan is coming up. You'll see little kids walking around at 2 a.m., eating, relaxing, not a worry in the world.
Mm.
You go to, I was in San Francisco, and people talk about, San Francisco, the gay area there,
Mm.
You go to downtown San Francisco at midnight, it is scary.
Mm.
I mean, it is not, nothing safe about it. I mean, the crime rate, the drug rate, the homeless rate, the suicide rate, it's insane. So this short-term pleasure always leads to long-term regret.
Always. Always, exactly. This is it in a nutshell. So if I choose to eat the junk food today and sit on the couch, tomorrow I'm going to gain a little bit of fat. Do that, repeat that, rinse and repeat for a year. I'm going to be completely out of shape.
Right.
Right? This is the short-term pleasure.
Heart problems and other issues that
You
come
know.
up. Yeah. I mean, so you had an interesting time with veganism because that's a
Yeah.
big thing. How was your
Interesting time.
How was your experience being a vegan?
Yeah, my experience being vegan